Marvel held a 5.5-hour long casting announcement live stream. 26 cast members were announced painstakingly, slowly, and wordlessly via the backs of chairs, and it all ended with Robert Downey Jr. himself in person strolling in and shushing the viewer. Also, in an interview this week, Scarlet Witch herself, Elizabeth Olsen, claims Wanda will not be returning for either of the Avengers films. Which of these announced cast members or unannounced cast members has us most intrigued?
Yeah, I mean, 5 hours after starting play on this thing, we finally wrapped it together as a world, and I think people had a lot of reactions to it, and a lot of people were like, why is this so long? And at the end of the day, I kind of thought it was kind of fun. I mean, I know 5 hours is a long time, but I think all of us here are like-minded in that we kind of like stuff like this, like long, drawn-out sort of marketing stunts that try to put something out there. So I thought it was kind of fun, and it definitely worked. I mean, there was a lot of conversation all day. The lead story on all of the trades was just an updating list all day. All of the trending topics on Twitter had to do with Avengers all day.
Yep.
And it was it seemed to do its job, which was be in the conversation and bring a lot of people into the conversation that like the X-Men and like the MCU stuff, and really just kind of bring a lot of different fans of things together in a conversation online. And it seemed to accomplish its goal, I think. And so, yeah, we saw the old X-Men, we saw the Ian McKellens and the Patrick Stewarts, and then we saw the cast of Thunderbolts and the cast of Fantastic Four, and we saw Tom Hiddleston, and we saw Chris Hemsworth, and just a lot of names were thrown at us. I walked away from the presentation definitely excited. I think it is an exciting move to especially see a lot of people that we didn't know were in this movie today. I mean, we could make assumptions, but all of the Fox X-Men stuff, that was new information. Like the Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, all of that was new information. So there was a lot of new information here. But I did walk away too wondering about the people who weren't here, like what chairs were not represented. And there are a lot of them. And I'll read off some of the ones that I took note of. And then again, I don't see this as like a criticism. I see this more of like this can kind of tell us where the story is going type thing. But real quick, I wrote down Mark Ruffalo, Iman Vellani, Brie Larson, Tatiana Maslany, Jeremy Renner, Paul Bettany, Chris Pratt, Benedict Cumberbatch, Haley Steinfeld, Samuel L. Jackson, Don Cheadle, Catherine Newton, Joe Locke, Elizabeth Olsen, any of the Eternals. I'm not going to write all their names down. Tom Holland, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Teyonah Parris, Dominique Thorne, and Jotil Gomez. And of course, there's a lot of smaller characters in there too, but one of the patterns that I'm noticing here is a lot of those names were Young Avengers characters. You know, you have your Miss Marvel, and you have your like Kate Bishop, I forgot her name for a second, and America Chavez and Wiccan and all these characters. And I think when I see that, I'm kind of reminded, all right, maybe that's a victim of just storytelling here, right? Like maybe we're not seeing these names on the back of the chairs, which would push this thing to 40 names or whatever, because maybe we will see a little bit of a split up of characters. We'll see some of these characters in Doomsday, and then we'll see some of these characters team up in Secret Wars to usher in the next phase of the story, whatever that may be. So I think it's a little bit of a clue maybe as to where the story's going. And then it should also be said that the Hollywood Reporter did put out an article about this today. And in the article, and this is a quote, it says, sources say that even with 26 actors announced, Marvel wasn't done with revealing the entire cast, although when and how another unveiling would occur was unclear. So at the end of the day, it's like, are they going to do this again? Probably not, but will they just trickle other characters in? We're just not really sure. But it doesn't seem like this is the full cast by any stretch of the imagination. Even though it is super impressive as it is, there's apparently more to come in some form, if it's in Secret Wars, if it's in Doomsday, or whatever.
I guess I will start by addressing the hippopotamus in the room. And if you don't get that reference, you got to join the Patreon so you can get access to the live stream. Then you'll get that joke. But in the wake of the reactions to this marketing stunt, I've seen a lot of people start to use the abbreviation DD for Doomsday. And I'm sorry, but that's just not going to work. When we have Daredevil airing concurrently, it gets real confusing really fast for me. So we have to move away from that. If we want to do ADD, I can rock with that. But DD's not going to work. So
It's called Doom or something.
Doomsday, one word too. It's one word.
Yeah, it doesn't really need an abbreviation. Yeah, that's fair. But I'm going to hone in on the Thunderbolts there, and I wonder, with the choice to reveal this information now, does it build hype for Thunderbolts, which I think it certainly does, but does it potentially spoil it by us learning that so many of these characters are going to be popping up in Doomsday? And I found myself kind of somewhere in the middle. I think this might be intentional misdirecting that kind of does the best of both worlds. It can build hype and excitement for Thunderbolts, but also kind of do what we've been asking for, like lie to us. Get me thinking certain things are going to happen in this movie. Make me think that people are safe. So when they do bite the bullet, it's really going to have some impact and hurt. So all of this is conjecture, but I'm very hopeful and optimistic that Marvel has been paying attention to everything and the comments from the fans and just kind of the perspective on Marvel as a whole. And I think, or my hope is that they are responding in kind and doing things that set us up for big reveals in the theaters. So, Jay, you honed in on some of the characters that aren't appearing, and that was noteworthy to me too. The connection that I made, though, is very few of the characters that were confirmed showed up in the leaked concept art that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And we were fairly confident that that was legit concept art, so I won't talk about the characters specifically, but I did find it very interesting that none of, like, one or two of those, maybe three or four at the most, of those characters that showed up in that concept art ended up being confirmed via this reveal here. So I don't know if that's revealing or if that's just a way of, trying to create some extra doubt around those pieces of concept art, because they've maintained, like the Russos have come out and said that wasn't concept art from these movies, but I think we know better. So in terms of the names that got the biggest reaction out of me, the first one was Channing Tatum. And that was an instance of giving me pause. And I was like, ugh, this is the first name that kind of has me gritting my teeth a little bit. It's like that joke worked really well in Deadpool and Wolverine. Mm-hmm. But to do anything past that just feels misguided to me. Unless, I think I said it previously, but if you bring him in for a second and kill him off unceremoniously, I'm cool with that. But anything past that, I think is not a good move, because that was the joke. He never was a character, and so this was his chance to be that kind of laughable character. So the other name that resounded with me was Tenoch Huerta as Namor. Because this is the first time we've heard anything about Namor since Wakanda Forever, but I think it makes a lot of sense with Sue Storm being a part of the proceedings, and we know that Vanessa Kirby, she was one of the first names announced for Doomsday, and we know that Fantastic Four is going to be focusing on her character very heavily. I don't think there's a way that they don't broach the romance that we've seen in the comics between Namor and Sue Storm, so I'm certainly excited for that.
I will jump into what you were saying about Thunderbolts. I agree. It's tough because I just want to believe they're lying to me. That's what I want to believe, but because there were a number of names that made me mad that were announced, and that was the Thunderbolts, because it makes me, I really believe going into Thunderbolts that is a team that could all die, and that adds stakes to that movie. And maybe they're lying to us, but the way this was done with such fanfare and this long 5.5 hour thing and this new kind of original way of announcing this, it just feels like something we're going to look back on. And if, a third of it is lies, it'll feel weird. It just seems like they don't normally directly lie to us like that. They just don't have to tell us everything, so that made me mad. And the other name that made me mad is Tom Hiddleston. Because if Tom Hiddleston is to show up as God of Stories Loki, I don't want to know. I'm just so many things I don't want to know about Doomsday, and I'm already at that point where I really you could not market this movie at all, and I will be there, and the movie will be better for me if I know less. And Tom Hiddleston is one of those names that I obviously want to be there, but where they left his character, I was really unsure if they'd ever bring him back. And it would feel really good if they did, especially if it was a surprise. So those names really made me mad because it feels like it's undercutting Thunderbolts. It's kind of ruining the surprise of things that might happen in Doomsday. It's part of the rollout. We're going to be learning bits of information and piecing this movie together over the next year. And I I don't really want to. Like, I don't want to know. I wish they just hold back just enough key things that I can maintain surprise in the theater. And Tom Hiddleston, to me, was one of those prime things that I've always not wanted to know. And if it's true, if this is legit, which is straight from Marvel Studios, I'm assuming it is, we already know.
I was lucky to just be sitting at my desk when I saw the live notification come on from Twitter. And I don't usually click on lives, but it was Marvel Studios, and I was like, what is this? And it was kind of interesting to watch it from the very beginning, because you have a person walking into this hangar, which is what that was. And like, it looked like an alien scene, like from an alien movie, because it's just their silhouette. You can't see them at first. And I was like, is this a scroll? And then it wasn't. It was just a person carrying a chair. But when they set it down and it was Chris Hemsworth's name, I was like, oh my God, like what a great way to start it off. One of the original 6, one of the big 3, someone we didn't know when they'd be coming back to the MCU. It's like, did we ever think Chris Hemsworth wasn't going to come back to the MCU? Probably not.
Not after Furiosa. Sorry.
In what manner? Who knew, right? And so I thought that was a banger way to start it off. And then when it just kept going, and I was like, well, I have a lunch meeting, so I have to leave. I was like, I'll catch it later. And then it was still going when I got back. I was like, what is happening? Super fun. I thought the biggest surprise for me was Rebecca Romijn coming back as Mystique, apparently, from the X-Men movies. Like, that's a long straw to pull out of the pack. So I was excited about that. But I have a different take. I'm not somebody for whom spoilers is a huge problem. I know that that's very subjective, and some people really hate them, and I get that. I'm also a Star Wars fan, and Star Wars fans are used to, like, getting stories where you know what's going to happen, but it's about the journey, not the ending kind of a thing. And so I think sometimes that plays into my love for different storytelling. But I just keep going back to, what are they holding back? Because you just got to know. We're going to get some big surprise. And I think about Elizabeth Olsen. We were like, how funny would it be if one of these chairs had her name on it? And then it didn't. And I was like, and then Benedict Cumberbatch and even Charlize Theron as Clea. Those are 2 big ones that we need in these movies. And we know they're going to, at least, Cumberbatch said he'll be in there after he said he wasn't. And Kevin Feige was like, no, you are. So it's just like, yeah, it can be a little disappointing to get some known things, but what is unknown? Because there's going to be something majorly unknown that wows us in the theater. I have to hope.
Yeah, well, we've seen actors talk about this, a few of them, and like you mentioned a couple of them just now. So like Benedict Cumberbatch, for example, like, oh yeah, I'm not in it, but then I'm in the second one, but then actually I'm in both or whatever, and kind of being back and forth. So it was clear to me that I don't think he was trying to misdirect us on purpose. We talked about this when it happened. I think he literally didn't really know. He just knew that there was Avengers things coming up. And then same with Paul Rudd. Like, Paul Rudd came out, I think it was earlier this week. Somebody asked him about being in these movies, and he was like, well, you can just tell the Russos that they have my number or something along those lines. And then one of those chairs today had his name on it. So you've got something like that too. I actually kind of believe Elizabeth Olsen. If you want to look at the exact quote, it was an interview in the Hollywood Reporter. She was talking about a movie called The Assessment coming up that she's in, and she was asked. And I will say, I don't think the headline writers, I don't think really captured exactly what she was saying. A lot of the headlines said Elizabeth Olsen confirms not in Avengers, but if you look at the actual interview, she says something to the effect of, they're like, oh yeah, you just wrapped up shooting this thing in London. Are the Russos going to extend your stay? And she was like, oh no, I'm back in the United States. I'm working on a pilot. I'm not in London. I'm not going to be in London for a while. It was kind of one of those things. Like, she didn't just say like, absolutely not, I'll never be in that movie, as kind of like what the headline sort of said. So again, it's kind of, it's kind of like, how do you want to take what she's saying? She's obviously not confirming it. She's not trying to get around it though either. But I also think back to a lot of things that she said. She's been a little back and forth. She's been a little bit like, I want to move on from that, but then I also love it. But then I also want to do other things that don't have to do with Marvel. But then I also kind of like working with the people. It's kind of always been a little back and forth with her. So I'm kind of the mind that if she's in these movies, I don't think that she'll be a central or focal character. I think we would have seen her name on one of these chairs if she had been. She would generate a lot of excitement. People love her. People love the Wanda character. So for her name to not be on one of these chairs, I don't think that's a misdirection. I think she's probably winding down her involvement a little bit with Marvel, because she's said as much in the last few interviews that we've seen with her, and she's got a lot going on right now. She really is shooting a pilot for FX right now that she's going to be in. So, there's yeah, I just have a lot of questions about a lot of these characters, and someone like Tom Holland, it's like, all right, well, he's getting ready to shoot Spider-Man 4, and that's in. He's doing that. He's doing the Odyssey. We know Spider-Man 4 is going to come out between Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, so we're going to check in with that character. But, like, are we going to need to check in with him in Doomsday 2? Like, maybe not if we're going to see him in a movie just a few months later. So, I think there's still a lot of questions to answer here.
Mm-hmm. I hear you on the Elizabeth Olsen points, but I never really believed her based on the quotes that I read. And after all of these announcements, I believe her even less so, because you look at Magneto, the inclusion of so many of these Fox X-Men, like, you have to have Scarlet Witch be a part of the proceedings, whether it's the no more mutants or the inverse of that, like, let's bring mutants into the fold here. Like, I don't see any other way. And maybe she's not a focal figure like you're saying there. I remember some comments from Benedict Cumberbatch again, like around like Infinity War and Endgame. He was like largely not present during the filming of Infinity War. Like, they had his stunt double there, his like stand-in, and he had to come in and do pickups to, like, replace his face. A lot of it, like, if you pay attention, there's a lot of scenes it's just the back of Doctor Strange's head. So they could do the same thing with Scarlet Witch here pretty easily. And on the subject of, the X-Men and how many X-Men are included here, I recall back at San Diego Comic-Con, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of fervor right before we got the confirmation about Doomsday. People were thinking Avengers versus X-Men. So I think that is clearly a possibility and clearly at play here. But what is the story at large here? And are we going to see Doctor Doom be the manipulator or the architect of destruction that sometimes he is, and maybe he's the one that's pitting the Avengers and X-Men against each other? It's like, which universe is going to survive this incursion? Like, fight for it.
Yeah. It would be so wild if that's really what it is. And it's the X-Men universe is very beloved in many ways, but it's also feels like its time has passed. So it feels weird to pit them against each other, like as universes. Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. Very strange idea, and very meta too, to like have your two universes that are literal not only universes in the canon, but also like film universes, film franchises, and have them go against each other. We've talked about in the past doing like if they ever did like a Marvel versus DC type of movie. If we ever get to that point of crossover where like, where do we go from here? What's the undiscovered country? And then they do something like that. Yeah, give it time. Exactly. All things will happen eventually. But yeah, that surprised me a lot. The number of original 2000s X-Men that are in this. We had Kelsey Grammer, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Alan Cumming, Rebecca Romaine, James Marsden, and Channing Tatum doesn't really count, but he's like, what was it? Honorable mention.
I'm about to make a name for myself here today.
I really can't believe I can't believe his name's on a chair. It's like, I think it's you, Jay, who said, if Wanda's name wasn't here, or if Elizabeth Olsen, she's probably not a main character, but it's like, does that mean that Channing Tatum is going to be a main character?
Well, I think that's the misdirect. I think it's like, here's all the names. You don't know how much they're going to be in the film or not. Like, we know that Monica is with those X-Men or some faction of those X-Men. These could even be the same looking X-Men in a different universe. That's what they very well could be doing, because
yes, 100%.
That is kind of what we think happened at the end of the Marvels with Monica.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I guess. Sorry, my bad, whatever.
Yeah, it's like 2 years.
The movie's been out for a while. So, it's like, it could be that, because the X-Men thing kind of does give me pause, because it's like they wanted the Deadpool Wolverine thing to be the farewell for the Foxmen,
sure.
And so it's like, are they doing that again, or are we doing them but not them, which is what I would personally prefer.
Yeah, and this has
I
got to
agree.
be a swan song for the X-Men, the Fox X-Men, I would think. I mean, at this point, like bringing all these characters back is a nod, and it's a way to connect. I mean, people who watched the whole Fox verse are probably the same. There's a lot of crossover between people who watched the whole MCU. So I think this has got to be the last time I would imagine that we see these particular actors. I mean, Ian McKellen and Sir Patrick Stewart, like when are these guys going to rest? I mean, it's crazy.
They offered Hugh Jackman till he's 90. I better get to that 90.
But it does raise questions for me about like we know that the X-Men are on the table. We know that there's a film in the works about the X-Men. We know it already has a writer. It's being fast tracked. So there is a future for X-Men characters, but I don't think it's controversial at all to say it's probably not going to be these actors portraying those characters. So I got to wonder how are we ultimately, I mean, we're talking about Secret Wars, which is years away, but how are we ultimately going to leave those characters in a place where the mantles or the actual characters themselves or whatever can be taken up by new people to carry those characters into the next thing? You know, I mean, we've talked about before Secret Wars, like what is it going to serve as? Is it going to serve as a reboot in some form or fashion? Or is it going to be some sort of a soft reboot? And I've got a lot of those questions after seeing like, well, yeah, there's going to be X-Men in it, but they're all the old guys. You know, it's like, okay, well, that signals to me that maybe there is a little bit of reboot talk going on with Secret Wars, and that maybe we have a future with the X-Men, but it's probably post Secret Wars that we see new people portraying these characters. But how are we going to get there, I guess, is a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions there.
I've liked the Wanda theory for a long time. You know, in comics, she has no more mutants. It'd be really nice to be like, for the universes to touch her, to interact with all this. Maybe she learns about a different version of herself that had a different family, you know. She's been seeking family since she lost her children. And it's like what if she knew in this other universe there was this whole mutant family that you know, she got to know and love, and then like she's able to manifest them in our universe, and then it's like a whole new crew of different X-Men, but it still fits into the 616 well enough to maintain continuity or whatever. All right, well, we could go on, and you can find that full list everywhere, but basically it's just a big list. You know who's markedly absent, in my opinion? Chris Evans.
Yeah.
He's showing up.
He's
showing up, somewhere. He'll show up somewhere.
For sure.
Haley Atwell. All those ones that were already, like, they're going to do it.
I think there's a lot more still to come.
For sure.
About this. I think there's a lot of cast members still to come for this movie and Secret Wars and the whole thing. Which, I mean, they're shooting back to back. It's going to be a part 1, part 2 story. We can kind of consider them the same story. And yeah, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg with the characters that we'll see in this.
Yep, absolutely.
And of all the Thunderbolts they include, Taskmaster weirdly absent.
That is
Wonder
weird.
why that is. Yeah.
Shocking.
That is so weird.
The worst kept secret in Marvel history. When it happens in the theater, I'm just going to be like, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
If you got to go to the bathroom, that's the time to do it. Yeah.
Aw.
Sorry.
Terrible.
I like Taskmaster.
Early RIP.
You just watched a clip from Multiverse News. If you liked it, go to our channel. We got a whole episode that it comes from. So go check that out and hit the like and subscribe. And we got lots of clips you'll enjoy, but also full hour-long episodes of Multiverse News with lots of things that don't even make it to clips. So check us out.
You stay clippy.